Okay, we are streaming. Let me check here and make sure that we're good. All right, here we go. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Armato, the co-host and of the new podcast, What Really Matters, with attorney Chris Frey. We're here and excited to kick off our first show tonight, so bear with us. We're going to talk and learn a little bit about Chris's background, find out why he chose law, and how he arrived here at Consult. Every episode, we're going to discuss current events with you and relevant topics in the legal industry, in addition to sharing information about Consult mobile app, its amazing features, and how the legal profession will benefit from the use of this superlative product. Chris, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. Thank you.
You loose? You playing loose?
I am. I feel good.
All right. Well, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about yourself, brother?
Okay. I am the present CEO and president of Consult mobile app, and I'm here to discuss a little bit about my background. Try and keep it short and sweet. I was born in Richmond Hill, Queens, New York, and moved out to the island, Lake Ronkonkoma. For those who don't know Lake Ronkonkoma, they probably know the next town over, Amityville, from the Amityville horror, unfortunately. My family moved to Clearwater, Florida when I was just prior to entering high school, and I graduated from Clearwater Central Catholic High School in Clearwater, Florida, after which I obviously wanted to go to college, and I had applied at a number of colleges. I was accepted to pretty much all of them, and I was trying to decide where to go. My family lived in Tampa Bay. We, like I said, we had been down for a relatively short period, high school basically. So I decided to stay in the area, and I went to the University of South Florida in Tampa.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. And I graduated with a degree in broadcasting.
That's kind of a switch going into law from broadcasting. How'd that happen?
It was definitely a switch. The broadcasting major and the curriculum basically included or was geared mostly toward like news media, doing basically reporting. And at the end of the curriculum, there were two requirements for all students. You had to do an internship, and you had to take a course, the Big Bear broadcast law. Everybody feared broadcast law because it had a very high failure rate, and people would have to take it again in summer school to graduate. However, I did exceedingly well in it. I got an A in the class, and I was the only person, or the first person actually, I believe, at least at that time, to get a 100 on the final exam. At the same time, rather than doing an internship with a media outlet like a radio show or Fox News or whatever was around back then, I chose to, based on the broadcast law class, do an internship with Holland and Knight. An attorney, Greg Thomas, who was a media lawyer there, represented the Tampa Tribune, and so I interned for him during that semester. And between the two classes, I really started developing not only the challenge, but I just became very interested in the legal aspect of the media. And when I did so well on the exam, my professor pulled me aside and said, "Listen, I've noticed throughout the class that you seem to have a very good, strong interest in law." He never had anyone get 100 on his exam before, so he just suggested, you might want to look into it. And I thought about it for a while, and then I thought harder, and I decided this looks like it's for me.
So then what happened?
Well, initially what happened was I applied for a job, and oddly enough, my first job that I actually obtained out of college was as a show host for Home Shopping Network before it boomed. And so I had pitched that over to a friend of mine who became very successful on there, Brian Collard, and I went to law school. And when I was in law school, I served on the Stetson Law Review. I was always a writer. I love to write, and I was also interning and clerking for an attorney, George Rodert, in St. Petersburg, Florida. And George was a friend of Greg Thomas's because they both did media law and First Amendment law, and George represented the St. Pete Times and I believe the New York Times.
How'd you get into criminal law?
That is another interesting issue. When I was clerking for George, or George Rodert, the first two cases I ever laid hands on as a law student and literally in my legal career, both were argued in the United States Supreme Court. The first of which, the Arline decision, people may not know the name Arline, but they know the ruling because it became the basis of the screenplay for the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks. And I also worked on another case that went to the United States Supreme Court. So I had the very unusual opportunity to observe oral arguments twice in Washington, D.C. in the United States Supreme Court.
Out of the gate.
Out of the gate, prior to the bar. And I thought to myself, oh, where's it go from here?
Yeah, right. Everything else seems kind of anticlimactic, right?
Yeah. So from there, you had asked about criminal. I obviously had the writing experience from my time at Stetson on serving on the Law Review. I continued to write for the Law Review, and what I felt like I was lacking in balancing my skill sets for practice were trial skills. So I went down and I applied and got a job at the state attorney's office in the Sixth Judicial Circuit for Pinellas and Pasco County, which again is where my family lived. And I served for 6 years as a prosecutor there.
Wow. Saw some stuff there, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. After that, what'd you do?
After I left the state attorney's office, my brother and many of his friends were very high caliber football players. Actually, he was ranked number 1 in 1991 in the country as offensive lineman. And I wanted to dabble into the sports agency, but you couldn't do it from a government job. And I felt it was time to move on to private practice. And anyway, so I opened a sole practice and initially had a partner, and then was in practice for about 7 years, predominantly criminal defense. I did some civil, some PI, a little bit of family law work. And then later on down the line, I joined a prominent law firm in Tampa Bay area, Carlson Meisner. Great lawyers, great firm. And I was with them for 12 or 13 years. After which I went back into private practice for a year. I worked on some tobacco litigation, and then I took a job in Fort Myers area, Southwest Florida, working for the Public Defender's Office as a senior attorney, mentoring younger students, etc. And from there, I wound up coming back to Tampa Bay area and practicing criminal defense.
Can you? Well, I guess it's kind of anticlimactic after the Supreme Court situation, but any other highlights from your career that you'd like to share?
Actually, yeah, I do. Because looking back at it, you don't realize it at the time, but looking back at it and discussing it, I had some pretty significant, opportunities throughout my career. One of them was a kind of an odd situation. It was a civil trial. It was actually a civil murder trial. It was a probate action where they were contesting the beneficiary's rights to the proceeds of the insurance because of an allegation that she took part in the murder or the death of the decedent. aside from that, now that I work for Consult, I'm no longer actively trying cases. So I've got, some pretty solid statistics as to my trial experience, which was pretty prolific. I've tried 247 jury trials to verdict with an approximate 77% success ratio. I had, between 1998 and 2008, a 10-year streak where I had 52 jury trials with no clients convicted as charged and 39 consecutive not guilty verdicts.
Wow.
And thank you. And in that time, I handled a lot of higher-end, high-risk trials. Sex offenses, but a lot of firearm charges. And at that time, or about that time, I don't recall exactly when, Florida came out with a couple of laws that were, how would you say, debated by multiple sides. One was the stand your ground law, which traditionally is self-defense. The other was the 1020 life statute, which imposed mandatory sentences for firearms used in the commission of certain felonies. So I had a number of shooting cases, trials that actually went to trial involving shootings. And utilizing the stand your ground defense, I had won 3 back-to-back jury trials and 3 consecutive not guilties. So right around that time, as people in our area, this neck of the woods, so to speak, Seminole County, Sanford, will recall, and the nation will recall, the Trayvon Martin incident.
Still talked about today.
Still today. I saw an article about it just the other day, the George Zimmerman case. And I was in my office one night, kind of catching up after 3 weeks of jury trials, and I just started receiving a barrage of contacts from every which way. I was getting emails, I was getting text messages, phone calls, office phone, my cell phone, from print media, newspapers, magazines, cable news, CNN, and all of the big ones, CSNBC, C-SPAN,
Telemundo.
Telemundo, True TV, if they were around back then, and also network television, the big 3, and it was not only reporters, but I was getting calls from bureau chiefs, all talking about the stand your ground defense. So I basically asked them, because I was curious, and there were so many coming in, I was trying to field them. And so I finally asked somebody, I said, why am I getting all these calls? Why me?
Yeah.
And they explained to me that they had done some research, and I was apparently, according to their research, the only attorney in the state of Florida who had actually achieved 3 not guilty verdicts using the stand your ground defense, which was in issue and in play at the time in the Trayvon Martin trial. So I wound up becoming a kind of behind-the-scenes expert, so to speak, and media consultant on the stand your ground law. And I would basically, discuss legal issues, applications, hypotheticals, the nuances of the statute with the reporters to explain it to them so that they had a better grasp on what was going on and they could report on the case and the issues involved in the case. It was very interesting, and actually I was flattered by it. I didn't realize, the statistics that they were giving me, but it was quite an experience.
That's crazy. And now you're here at Consult.
And now I'm here at Consult.
Tell us how you got here.
Well, throughout my career, I did some other things of note. I've lectured, I taught, or assisted teaching trial advocacy at Stetson University, whose trial team was fantastic. They win all the time nationally. I've published other articles in a Florida Bar Journal and continue to write for the Stetson Law Review. And I had come back from Fort Myers, and once again began working with Carlson Meisner. And I came across a long-term friend of mine from, I think, 1996, David Charles. And David is our founding father of Consult and the brainchild behind our cross-platform mobile application. And Dave started, he wanted to talk to me. So I, started, we met up, and he started explaining to me his concept and how he came about this concept, which I jokingly refer to as Dave's dream, because literally Dave, he's kind of an idea man. And, he came out with an idea. He was in bed one night and literally had a little bit of a dream about this product that would act as a communication tool, an interactive tool for attorneys and clients, because there was nothing and is nothing else out on the legal software market that is designed to benefit and give equal access to and benefits to clients as well as attorney. Most everything else out there is designed for and utilized by attorneys,
right,
and law firms.
Oh, for sure. And we're going to discuss tonight probably what I've always heard you just say is your favorite feature on this app, and that is the attorney on call.
Yes, yes, and it involves the HD video, which is just brilliant. I mean, it's crystal clear. The audio is great. But the thing was that impressed me when we were talking about the concept of Consult was Dave's creation of what we call the Consult Attorney on Board platform. And I thought it was brilliant. And I still think it's brilliant. And pretty much everybody who sees it thinks it's brilliant.
It is.
It's
an amazing idea. And, everybody that we've spoken to, the first thing out of their mouth is,
hasn't anybody ever thought about this before?
Isn't it out yet?
Yeah, is it? And the answer is kind of weird because it's ish, because people, there are products out there that deal with video conferencing, and there are products out there that deal with case management, but there's no product out there that makes an interactive cross-platform device that deals with both.
That's encrypted.
That's encrypted and secure, and everything's secure within the app. And the attorney on call list, which I believe have a demonstration of.
Yeah, we're gonna. I'm gonna show, and I'm gonna push this, and I'm gonna put the. We're gonna show how easy it is for a client to find their attorney, and they just go in. They put their name in there, their first and last name. You put your driver's license number, then you enter your zip code, as we're going to see right here, and then you write a little note. You choose what type of law you have, or what type of lawyer you need, right? And then you hit the I want to see an attorney, and then boom, we have this amazing list that comes up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, and this is a brilliant feature. The attorney on call is kind of it's got two parts to it. First of all, from the client perspective, they can put in whatever zip code they want. Like if they're looking for an attorney that's closer to work, they can go closer to work. If they want to go closer to home, they can go closer to home. And it draws up the attorney subscribers on a list. And we also have sponsored listings where you can an attorney can, upgrade and always be on top. But from the client's perspective, what it does is it gives them a list of attorneys with Avo integration, so they have their Avo ratings on there. And they can also click on the attorney, which brings them directly to the attorney's Avo profile.
Right.
So that they can, research a little bit about the attorneys, and so they can choose one. And from the flip side of that, the map view. The map view, the graphics are brilliant. What it does is it shows you exactly where each attorney in your area is located and gives the mileage, the distance from where you are. And it also does that on the actual list. And I said, and I think we're going to demonstrate what it
right
does.
Now. We're doing it right now.
They choose an attorney, and we'll see what happens. It's as simple as clicking on somebody, and it goes directly
right
through.
We got the map view. We just saw the list view. And that's amazing, too, right? And then we're going to talk about and segue into the attorney side of it. You know, and we know that there's always been a disconnect between attorneys and clients, right? I mean, you know that, and the number one bar complaint is that I don't know, and this is from the clients about the attorneys, is I don't know what's going on with my case. My attorney doesn't get back with me, and you and I read the ABA reports, and we see we always flip through the disciplinary actions, right? And it's like, how many times do you see an attorney getting in trouble for not responding to clients, right?
Well, it's it's one of the most predominant complaints by clients. Now, we won't go into the veracity of every complaint, but it's definitely been an ongoing, long-standing issue between attorneys and clients. And it doesn't mean that the attorney is a bad attorney. You're just always on the go. So we're not only in an on-demand society, we're in an on-the-go society.
Oh, for sure.
And so everybody's moving and trying to coordinate, and what this does is it bridges the gap, because it gives the ability for the attorney and client to communicate with one another from wherever they are on whatever device they're on.
Right. I'm gonna flip back here, and we're gonna start this over just to give everybody a look again. Another thing too is that we're putting that client in front of an attorney immediately.
Yes.
And we all know that, and here's the thing, attorneys do what they do for a living, right? But if you have an issue, and by the way, 20% of Americans typically have legal issues where they need an attorney every year, right?
Yes.
And to them, it's a big deal, and we're putting them, you go on, you see the list view, you see the map view, you look at the attorney, you pick it, boom, you hit the button, I want a video chat with an attorney, and then they pop right up like we see here. You see the attorney right there.
There I am,
you
chubby
have
cheeks.
Yeah, you have that consultation and that ability. And let's talk about how important that consultation is to an attorney's, world.
It's extraordinarily important. And before we get into statistics, just from a practical standpoint, face-to-face communication has a multitude of benefits to it. And again, they're backed up by statistics. But clients like to be able to look their attorneys in the face and see that the attorney has their best interest at heart. It also provides, the establishment of trust and rapport. And from the attorney's perspective, it puts them immediately in contact with the client, and the app basically funnels, as a marketing tool, funnels clients to attorneys. And they handle the calls, and let's maybe hit some of the statistics now between the differential between face-to-face contact and telephonic, email, and
it's
texting.
Staggering. If you, first of all, 79% of consumers contact attorneys by phone.
Yes.
That's their primary point of contact.
Everybody's got a phone.
Everybody's got a phone, right? And typically, as well as I do, advertising costs for attorneys are the highest in the industry.
Yes. Attorney advertising in the legal industry is the most, I believe, of any profession worldwide.
Yeah.
And the numbers are just astounding when you look at them with some of the services that are out there that are routinely being used by attorneys, like legal referral services and pay per click. I mean, they're talking $65 to $100 per lead.
Yep.
And those leads go to multiple attorneys, so it's not like it's a dedicated lead to you as an attorney, or if I was in practice.
No, you got to share them. You got to share them. Yeah, we even heard practices paying $1,000 to $2,000 to get like what 5 or 10 leads.
5 or 10 leads.
You know, and it's shared with I believe 5 or 30 leads for a couple grand, and it's shared with 5 to 10 other attorneys that you have. They're sent at the same time. There's no.
That's correct.
Yeah,
and not only that, but just like pay per click, the attorney has to pay the $65 to $100 per name or per click, regardless of whether or not that person still has their email address, or whether or not they answer the phone, or you ever got in contact with them. You're paying for the lead. You're not paying for any kind of assurance that you're going to even get in contact with that client.
Right.
Not to mention you're competing with multiple attorneys over the same lead.
Yeah, and you get a 72% closing ratio on a face-to-face conversation versus a 14% ratio over a telephone call.
I mean, think about that. 14%, 72%.
Yeah.
It's
staggering.
enormous. It's staggering.
And it's HD video. How good does a video look? Because I know you always are like...
if we look on our screen over here, it's a freeze frame at this point, but it's crystal clear. It's high definition. I mean, it's secure, and the audio is excellent. It's crystal clear.
It is, and it's amazing. It's crazy when you see us talk about it, and then it's come to fruition, right? Like we've had a baby, and this is we're changing the industry. I mean, and it's with the COVID situation too, right?
Sure.
There are going to be, and this isn't going away, right? Because we have people that are not going to want to leave their house. They're not going to want to go out in public.
Still do.
And this is a great way, right? And you have an encrypted environment for them to have this conversation on. And it's amazing to me that you have this tool that's in your palm of your hands, right? It's cross-platform, and we're providing the attorney the ability to close that client and immediately. And mention some of the other, what else helps in your opinion as an attorney? What are some of the other features on the on-call from the attorney perspective to help them close that deal? What else have we put in there for them?
Well, we have onboard documents, what we call the consult quick intake form to get information from the client, and the quick retainer form. And so you can literally have a one-call close and we timed it. It was under 3 minutes from the time you start looking for an attorney until the time you're actually talking to the attorney.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And from the attorney's end, when they get the drop-down menu with the little ring that you have an incoming call, from the time you hit that with the facial recognition to the time that you're on actually speaking to your client is 3 seconds, I believe, it timed out at.
It's the real deal.
It's amazing. And like you said, in today's, we'll call it the on-demand society.
Oh, yeah, Mark Cuban said that.
And it's always been in law, the primary concern of the attorney is to get in contact with that client immediately and try and get them into your office face-to-face as soon as you can. But from a practical standpoint, that's not always possible because you may have attorneys that are in court, they may be in trial,
right.
They're may be inaccessible for whatever reason.
Right.
And the same thing with clients. They've got lives to lead.
Right.
So trying to coordinate schedules and get into an appointment is one thing. Another thing is life happens. You know, they get stuck in traffic. There may be a car accident.
Or they don't want to wait.
Or they don't want to wait.
And, because, we'll talk about millennials real quick, right? They make up 50% of the workforce right now, right? 75% in the next 5-7 years, right?
Yep.
They're not going to wait.
Aging into the legal market.
They're not going to wait.
They are not.
And if they call you and they say, hey, next Tuesday we're going to have a meeting, they're going to go, oh, okay. and then you think you have an appointment, they're going to hang up the phone and they're going to call the next person.
Absolutely.
That's right underneath you, you know. And with what we're doing is we're putting them in front of you, face to face, right? We're giving you an opportunity to close that client, to get that retainer agreement, right, and onboard them right out of the gate.
And then that does two things. Number one, it gains the client for the attorney. And number two, it gives the client immediate peace of mind.
Oh, for sure.
That they have an attorney. It's
Yeah.
a huge weight lifted off their shoulders because, let's face it, you're under stress. And another thing about the app and downloading the app, because I just looked at my phone. I've got apps, that I never use, like the Bubble Level or whatever it is. But this is an app that has a very practical purpose because, let's face it, you never know when you're going to be in a car accident. You never know if there's going to be a criminal allegation and some detective's going to show up at your door, or you get pulled over and there's a DUI investigation. It just happens.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait until it happens to try and start searching your cell phone, because you may not have an opportunity because the police may have your cell phone on the roof of their car. But if you have it on your app, you can immediately utilize it to locate an attorney.
Yeah, and it's free to the users too.
Free download.
Yeah, and how cool of it for the attorney? What kind of cool tool is it for them to have, right? Like,
oh, it's amazing.
I
mean, they not only have control over the business flow because we have the on-off toggle on the attorney on board. So if you're in court and you're unavailable, you can toggle off, but you can still get notifications that you had a missed call. So as soon as you're out of court, you can even step out in the hallway, find a little private spot, and do a video call from the hallway. You can do it out in the parking lot in your car. And have an actual consultation without all of the rigmarole involved in setting appointments and, adjusting schedules and coordinating schedules. And boom, you just get it done. And you get it done fast.
It's law's changing.
It completely is changing. We've got, paperless filing now throughout the country. The entire legal system is moving into, we're already in the digital age, but it's going to be
at warp speed
technology.
Yeah.
And if you're not ahead of the curve, you're going to be behind the curve, and you're going to find yourself struggling in business.
Oh yeah. We're changing the way business is done in this industry. And we're giving you an amazing tool. We're giving the clients an amazing tool. It's so pro user and it's so pro attorney, and we wanted to make it simple. We wanted to make it efficient, right? And we wanted to make it, pragmatic, Yeah,
it's so easy to use.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's more features we're going to be discussing in the future. Is there anything else you wanted to add about the attorney on-call features?
Just with regard to the progression, and it's going to be a massive continuous progression into digital and working remotely. A comment that I heard in an interview by the president of the American Bar Association, who said that they feel that it's incumbent on the ABA to make sure that attorneys are properly equipped to deal with clients in these situations in two areas primarily: document and data sharing and communication, because people can't communicate. There are lawyers out there right now. You guys know who you are. You're sitting there at your desk. You can't talk to your clients. And, there's, like I said, there's video out there. Many of them are struggling with different various security problems and things like that. But there's a huge problem right now because of COVID. Now, this concept, just for the record, was created or thought of
prior to all this.
Way prior to COVID. Nobody expected COVID, but in the present circumstances, this is a perfect tool to meet that ABA standard of properly equipping an attorney with the ability to communicate and share data.
Yep.
It's perfect.
Yep. in an HD encrypted environment.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, there you have it, everybody. Thank you for listening tonight. On our next episode of What Really Matters with attorney Chris Frey, we're going to be showing you some more amazing features and discussing more about the Consult app. And we'd like to thank you again, Chris.
Well, we want to, we're on YouTube. We want to get thumbs up for us. And if you could subscribe to it, hit that little bell so that you'll be made aware of our upcoming shows. There will be many. And we're going to be doing a lot of things on our shows. We're going to be talking about not only current events and legal issues. We're going to have potentially some attorneys calling in, answering questions, and going through the features and videos and demonstrations to show the importance and the practicality of and functionality of all of the features. And you can watch it on the video and see how simple it is. Or you can go to our website right now and watch the features.
Yep, consultlivenow.com. And then also we'll be here, we'll be back with this show next Monday night. And then we'll be back in the studio on Wednesday and Friday with our Consult show. So everybody have a great night. Thank you and stay safe.